Hello everyone and welcome to race number 1 of the Premier Endurance Series season number 2. It's proudly brought to you by Gaming Gear Direct and Virtual Motorsport Mentor. We'll jump straight into the action with the start of our race. First of the series, 2 hours from Circuit to Barcelona, Catalonia. Pole position was Matt Andrews with a 1:41.790, and he'll lead us to the green flag off alongside of his teammates as well. And the run down to turn number 1, always exciting, but it's going to be dominated by the top 6 spots. We're all locked out by Porsche. A little bit of bumping and grinding as they got into turn number 1. We turn our eyes a little bit deeper in the pack, and Stefan Lawrence made this mistake, unfortunately catching up a number of cars deep in the pack, which would trigger a whole bunch of cars trying to look for the cleanest escape route. Unfortunately, a ton of drivers that would be taken out of strong positions. Stefan Lawrence was the lead car that caused that one. We'll jump straight into the first of our battles, which is for P42 all the way down to P47. The recovering Stefan Lawrence was a part of this one, as well as Ricky Provenzali, Adam Jepson, Stefan Mellis, Braden O'Loughlin were the cars involved in this one, but it was tight racing all throughout. This in just the opening couple of minutes as everyone tried to settle themselves down into the rhythm. Jepson and Mellis at the lead of this pack that would swap positions a number of times, and Provenzali would get down the inside right there to get the job done on Jepson, and Stefan Lawrence would try and follow him along through there down the inside of Stefan Mellis, and unfortunately for Jepson, he was just wrong place, wrong time. Provenzali gets the job done, and Lawrence picks up a bunch of spots to boot. This is the first safety car incident of the race as Brent Tucker would crash on lap number 7, 9 minutes in. Unfortunately for Brent, he would break the drivetrain as he had impacted the wall quite hard with the right-hand rear of the car. That would trigger our first safety car of the night, and we would get restarted right here, 22 minutes in. Again, the field controlled by the Virtual Motorsport Mentor Porsches of Matt Andrews and Ben Jeffrey, who would continue to lead us away. It looked like in this one, the bulk of the field did not come down to pit road, but Jacob Hughes would make this error on the restart as he fought with Jackson Pringle. Thought he got clear, thought he got the job done at turn number 1, didn't quite leave enough space for Pringle to get through. He'll get tagged and he will get spun around. Unfortunately, that would be to the rear of the field for Jacob Hughes, as would be forced to sit on the side of the road waiting for a gap in traffic to rejoin. Later on in the lap, this would be Brandon Grosh, and I believe Adam Jepson is actually the car in front of him. I'd actually be Brandon Grosh and Nick Bottrell who would make contact down at the hairpin. Unfortunately, spinning Grosh in front of the field and causing a secondary incident as the car shoots through on the right-hand side there. On the 950 would get parked up, which is for Adam Holland. This would trigger the second safety car of the night as a secondary impact of the parked 950. He was just left abandoned in the middle of the road. Not much he could really do. We restart once again at the 31st minute of the race, continuing to be controlled by the Virtual Motorsport Mentor, but a number of cars up and down the field would elect to take the strategy option and try and buy themselves a little bit of track position later on in the race. Undercutting into free air at this point would be absolutely huge, with the first of our pit lane windows opening in about just 10 minutes from now. If you can get in and get a very, very quick stop done, that could lead to a lot of racing position, particularly when this tanks were empty coming to the most recent safety car. So changes things up in terms of the strategy game quite a lot. More battling at the restart will ensue as everyone tries to settle them in before this pass for P number 8 on lap 19. Adrian Gresh would get a strong run out of the final corner, get down the inside on the BMW of Nick Wood, and get the job completely done before the apex of turn number 1. Back on with racing as he moves himself up into P8, escorts Nick Wood down to P9. Just moments later, it was going to be Jackson Pringle's Mercedes at turn number 5 that would spin whilst running in P5 and be stranded in the center of the track. And just keep your eyes on this one for a few moments. Cars going left, cars going right. There is no good place to get through this one, and there was no good holes in the field for Pringle to get out of the way before finally having some damage to the front end of his car as another car tried to make their way through. That would trigger into this little battle here. It was a 660 car, I think, to make contact there with the front left corner. Provenzali in this battle pack yet again, along with Fonzo Latella, Matthew Carrick and Tim Fugan, as these guys would squabble over positions. Everyone eventually managing to set themselves down and have a look at that sausage curb. We'll be returning to that one later in the piece. I can tell you that much for sure. That's not a nice sausage curb for these guys to be running over. '67 machine would get down at the inside of one of the few Ferraris in the field. Field basically dominated by Porsches, with the Porsche GT3 car in a very strong position at this point in time. This is the battle now for P number 3, and Oscar Gleiser, new entry to the series, and Owen Coleman, the stalwart from season number 1, who is a big fan of this Mercedes. This would go back and forth for a little while, with them still side by side halfway through turn number 4 here. Crest of the hill before they get down and into turn number 5 and just stay with this battle for a few moments. You see it comes out the other side. Eventually it will end in contact between the 404 and Owen Coleman's Mercedes. And 3 wide on the exit here as well. Over on the right, Sim Racing Cars tried to buy in, and that was this corner down here at the turn 7, turn 8 chicane, where that sausage curb we were just talking about a few moments ago would bounce Owen Coleman's Mercedes across the track and unfortunately send both of them tumbling through the standings, with Gleiset on for a strong debut performance. Moving up to the battle for P4, about 48 minutes into the race here on lap number 24. This one was tough, as the battle between Adrian Gretsch and Nick Wood would continue. Gretsch started deep in the pack and made a lot of opening gains at the start of the race and handed himself up in this battle. For just a few moments after this battle ensued, Kevin Little would find a sausage curb later on in the lap, make contact with the barriers heavily down at the last corner. He would attempt to rescue this car out from the gravel trap, would do so, but unfortunately would be forced to tow half a lap later as he was caught with steering damage, and the pack would try and make their way by. Recognised it was not the safest situation, and we would get another safety car. We'd restart with 57 minutes left on the clock, just past the hour mark, just past the halfway mark, and this is where strategy would play in. Ru Kuistra would lead us back to green in the 252 Porsche, followed by a number of cars that opted to run an alternate strategy, including, I believe, Dean Hunt there in the shot that gets passed by one of the unnumbered Riot Sim racing cars. And all settle themselves back on in. And Gleisart, deeper in the pack, would take another spot away from one of the other Riot Sim racing cars at turn number 1 as well. Later on in the lap, it's going to be contact here between one of the BMWs in the field, making contact with Riot Sim Racing BMW, the 303 entry of Dean Reddit, which would make further contact with the Ford GT Matt Keane from SLM Racing, unfortunately sending them both out of the way. Before we get down into this battle, this was only a couple minutes later on the next lap. Alex Kay tries to get down the inside and make a move. We'll get a little bit of a run through turn number 1, but not get the move done. Hugo Sutherland, his teammate, to the outside, and a crisscross move here sent the 3 cars tripping over each other. Kay would go around, would try to hold on the brakes here, and would just get clipped by the pack. No safety car would be triggered as a part of this one, but the cars driving around them would be forced to scatter, and Kay had no option but to sit on the inside of the road and wait for the field to funnel by. This would be a 3-wide battle down into turn number 1, with Nitschke and Coleman leaning on each other before they'd all just get out of it and all untangle themselves and continue on. But as you can see, racing starting to heat up as we're into the second half of the 2-hour duration. And all of a sudden, all of those track position, all the places that you can possibly get mean a lot to each and every single driver. This battle pack would be joined by a number of cars from a number of different outfits. Everyone was trying to make their way back through. Indeed, Alex K trying to make a move in the background before this incident would happen again moments later. 42 minutes left on the clock. Stefan Mellis would swap ends with his Porsche at the final turn. Very similar to Kelvin Little's incident as well, steering damage for this car. Whilst rescuing the car and attempting to assess whether or not this would be drivable back to the pit lane, he would get a hole in traffic, or so he thought, on the main straight. That car you've just seen on the back end of that shot, Nigel Seidel attempting to come down through the field, and unfortunately for Mellis, as it crests the hill here, the car, he's got no control over that car, and this would end both Nigel Seidel and Stefan Mellis's night, their race, and the hopes of both cars triggering, I believe, another safety car. There was a battle for P8 in this one, and this would be an important one to watch as well. As one of the Riot Sim racing cars again would squabble over the semantics of leaving the space on the run down to turn number 7 here, making contact with Glyset and escorting both of these cars outside of the track and into the gravel. Lap 40 and a battle for P35 to P39 would continue. And this one with a number of drivers including Rue Kuistra, Matthew Gerard, Matthew Norris, Dean Hunt and Kelvin Little, after Kelvin would respond and get back out after his earlier incident in the race. Positions would swap multiple times. Matthew Norris trying to get down the inside of Dean Hunt there at turn number 5. Before we would move to this battle for P6 with approximately 26 minutes on the clock, lap number 47, cars in the middle of their pit cycle. This would be the sole Lamborghini of Leith McClimate in the 317 machine, but it would be one of the very few Ferraris in the field with Trent Allen that would get the job done there. They'd squabble over it. It wouldn't be decided at turn 1 and 2. It would take the entirety of turn 3 to get this one done down here at turn number 4, as they would swap for it, squabble for it. McClimate eventually comes away with the spot and a cheeky little bit of contact that would leave Trent Allen not entirely happy about this one. Remember that sausage curb we were talking about earlier in the night? Turn 7, turn 8. Nolan Coleman found the wrong side of the sausage curb, bending and breaking the steering in the left front of that car. Very, very long trip to the walls at turn number 9, and the final safety car of the night. 12 minutes left on the clock. The virtual motorsport machines back in control of the field. Generally, if I know something about race car drivers, a restart with not much time on the clock leads to chaos. It leads to big battle packs, and it leads to people looking for any possible move they can get, as the run down into turn number 1 would signify. And as you can see, it's just about standing room only. To be perfectly honest, some of these drivers would probably give a little bit more courtesy at a car park than a racing restart. Such is the aggression levels when you go back racing in 10 minutes on the clock. Down on lap 58, this would be a huge battle for Rick Provenzali at turn 7, making spots out and around the outside, as you'll see on the run down and in here. Keep your eyes on the BMW in the back end of this shot. Gets to the inside at turn 7, gets to the outside at turn 8, and then he'll have the outside at turn 9, and he absolutely sends it out and around here. Gets to the outside of, I believe, Stefan Lawrence right there. Gets the job done. He will pick the pockets of a number of these drivers and come away with a bunch of spots very late on in the piece, and with not much opportunity to respond deep into the hairpin. And again, the racing would continue all the way through the last moments of this lap, but it's not quite over and done with yet for those guys. In the meantime, up in the front end of town, Matt Andrews was able to check out the Virtual Motorsport Mentor number 2 Porsche. He'll be followed home by Ben Jeffries, number 1, previous championship winning Porsche. And the rest of the field would follow on. That's going to resolve the action from race number 1, the Premier Endurance League Championship, proudly brought to you by Gamer Gear Direct, the sim experts, as well as Virtual Motorsport Mentor, because even the pros need coaches.